Okay guys, welcome to Planet Geography. Today we are tackling V-shaped valleys and interlocking spurs. Before we get stuck into it, let's just look at an example of a V-shaped valley. What you can see here is the steep sides of the valley, the relatively small river that runs through it because it's in the upper course, and then those interlocking spurs as well, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now let's jump into these images I've drawn for you. So here is the life cycle of a river. We can see how it changes over time. We know the key features in the upper course of the river is a small discharge and a low velocity. So it's not moving that quickly and there's not a great volume of water in the river. Despite that, we can see the river's channel changes over time. We can see it gets deeper and deeper as we move from 100 years to 1,000 years plus. We can start to see how that steep V-shaped side is emerging as well. So, why does that happen? Well, it happens because of vertical erosion. Now, it's worth noting that the amount of vertical erosion does not change between these time periods, okay? Because the river's discharge is still the same, okay? But we can see the effects have become greater. Now, we know it really is important, vertical erosion. Yep. That is erosion that's going straight down, like a lift, vertical. That vertical erosion is taking place in four forms: hydraulic action, abrasion, attrition, and even some solution potentially, okay? That is how you go from this very small channel to this very deep one. However, you can also see that there has been some horizontal erosion too. It hasn't just gone straight down, it's also gotten wider and wider. So why is that? Well, it suggests that there's also some horizontal erosion as well as some vertical. So let's jump into that now. Okay, here's my V-shaped valley, which I'm pretty proud of, if I must say. We know from the previous section that it's created largely by vertical erosion, but we need to discuss how it's also created by some horizontal erosion, okay? So let's do that now. So horizontal erosion is the opposite to vertical. It's erosion going this way, horizontally. And it affects the river channel in a few ways, okay? It tends to make it wider. The main way in which we see horizontal erosion is freeze for weathering, okay? But there may also be some hydraulic action on the river banks as well. But what's going to happen is there's going to be cracks. Now with freeze for weathering, what's going to happen is that precipitation, could be snow, that's snow, it could be rain, it's going to get inside that cracks. Now, when it goes below 0 degrees, it's going to freeze and its volume is going to increase. So what's going to happen is it's going to go in, it's going to freeze, its volume expands, and then it thaws, melting, and then it happens again at night, repeatedly, until those cracks get bigger and bigger, causing erosion. Slightly different in the case of hydraulic action, where it's going to be tiny air pockets of air are going to be slammed into those cracks, and those cracks are going to be forced open by the river. But either way, the outcome is the same. What we see is that there is mass movement. So large bits of rock will fall away, causing essentially it to widen and deepen. This could be rock fall, this could be slumping. So big bits of rock falling and ending up in our river channel. Big pieces of rock falling into our river channel before being transported. And what happens as a result of this overall is that we get that famous and very dramatic steep-sided V-shaped valley. Okay, so V-shaped valleys, what you need to know is they're in the upper course of the river. They're created by vertical and horizontal erosion, with the horizontal erosion coming from freeze for weathering and some hydraulic action, whilst the vertical erosion coming from our four types of river erosion, okay, that we talked about. All right, hope that helps. Now let's look at interlocking spurs. Okay, so let's start off by looking at a real-world example of interlocking spurs. As we can see they are within the V-shaped valley. We are in the upper course with a small-scale river. And they form this interlocking, like your knuckles might form like this, interlocking, zigzagging path through the V-shaped valley. But what's actually going on there is that we have these kind of areas of hard rock that stick out into our river. And our rivers are lazy. They take the path of least resistance. So they're going to travel through the valley, finding and eroding the soft rock as they go, okay? Taking that path of least resistance again. And so it winds around the hard rock in that zigzagging motion, and it's alternating the zigzag as you move down the valley, okay? So with interlocking spurs, what I think you really need, you're only ever really going to be asked a short kind of question on it. So I would be saying zigzagging path, alternating between hard rock, path of least resistance. And I think that's probably enough for interlocking spurs, okay? So again, if you are asked a question about features, physical features in an upper course river, you have the option of both V-shaped valleys and interlocking spurs. Me personally, I would be going for V-shaped valleys every time, okay? Right, let's look at an exam question now. And if you're not into that, like and subscribe now so you see the future videos that we're posting all the time. Let's get a super quick multiple choice question from the AQA paper, paper 1. So here is our question, or here is our figure. Study figure 15. This is a classic example of a V-shaped valley. You can see from the steep sidedness of the valley, and then also those interlocking spurs, interlocking hard rock, isn't it, as they wind between the path of least resistance and soft rock. So there's our key features. We identify it as interlocking spurs. Here's our options. We see interlocking spurs as the first one. I would also say that a really good exam technique, exam tip, is to cross out the ones that you know are incorrect. Check out my videos on floodplain, levees and gorges, that's linked to waterfalls, and cross out the ones you know are wrong, and that leaves you with the correct answer. Okay, so you got off pretty lightly today, a very easy question, no writing at all. And we can see here, identify the landform interlocking spurs, gets you 100%, and on to the next question. All right, guys, like and subscribe for future videos. We'll be putting more and more out as we move towards the exam period.